Hi everyone, welcome to J&D Gardens. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Please plant that subscribe button. And if you're already a viewer, welcome back. We got a great episode for you today. It's part 3 in our winter composting series, where we're actually going to start our compost pile and give you a couple of hacks or tricks to help you through some of the problems that people have with winter composting. So stick around. So as I mentioned in the first 2 videos, there are certain pros to winter composting. And one of them that I mentioned was that every now and then you get a break in the weather and you're able to come out in the dead of winter and work in your garden. And actually, working on a compost pile in the cooler weather isn't so bad when you think about during the summer when you're working on it. It's 90 degrees, mosquitoes flying everywhere, you're sweating profusely, and the heat that's generated off of the compost piles. Now, today is actually only 10 degrees, and I hear it's only going up to 20. But it is a sunny day, and it actually feels kind of comfortable. Now, yesterday we got a real break in the weather, and it was 47 degrees. And I didn't have a jacket on. It was great. I had a long sleeve shirt, but I had no jacket. So we actually started our compost piles yesterday. Now, we have 4 bins, and we filled up 3 of them. But I saved one for today to show you the video. Now, I knew it was going to be colder, but I knew it was going to be sunny, and this is what I wanted to talk to you about. When you're going to pick where you're going to put your compost bins, try to put it where it's going to get the most sun. Over to my right, and you can't see, is our greenhouse. So we put it next to it because we knew it was the perfect location. The sun is rising in the east, and all day this area is going to get sun. So it's going to bake that compost during the day. And we have a couple other tricks to help that to help you get it even hotter, which we'll show you a little bit later. But for now, before it starts getting any colder and the sun drops down, let's start the compost pile. Now, when starting any compost pile, it's important that you have a good balance between 4 things. That's your carbons, your nitrogens, your water, and your air. If you have too much carbon material in your compost pile and not enough nitrogen, then your compost is never going to really start heating up. It's actually going to stay very dry, and it'll just take forever to break down. Now, if you have too much nitrogen and not enough carbon in your pile, then you might just get too much of a sludgy mess, and your compost pile will start smelling like ammonia and sulfury smell. And that'll take a while to break down. Same thing if you have too much water. If you do that, it'll just be a big sludgy mess, and it's just going to take a while to dry out. And all the bacteria that needs to grow in there and microorganisms will just take longer to develop. Same thing if you had too little water. It would just it's like having just too much carbon, not enough moisture in your pile. And that's why it's important when you're doing your compost pile is to do it in layers. And by layers means you'll want to add a layer of nitrogen materials, a layer of carbon materials, add your water, and then just keep building up. The air comes into play is every week or so when you come back and turn your pile, and that's really going to help all that beneficial bacteria and microorganisms get going to break down your pile. So when starting your if you've already done composting before, a good tip that help you get your pile started is to use some of the compost, a couple of buckets full of the compost that you already have in your pile, because that's already developed. All the bacteria and microorganisms have already started. So think of it as that big morning cup of coffee or that strong energy drink before you get to the gym. It's just gonna help kickstart the pile and get it going. So as you can see over here, I've already started the pile. I've added some of the material in here. I've added some of the cut up plants that we had done in our processing video and mixed it in with some compost. So, and I have some more over here. So what I want to do, and I'll talk about some of the materials as we go along, is add some carbon. And over here, Let me grab one of my bins, storage bins. Okay, this one I have sawdust. Like I said, sawdust is a great material. I make a lot of this in my workshop, so it's just, instead of it going into a landfill, it's great for the compost bin. So I'll just add it in there. If you can see that, I don't want to get in the way of the camera. Add a little bit of, you don't want to add too much. You don't want to add too much because it can really dry it out, just harder to break down. So, okay. So I have some more nitrogen material here, more plant that I've broken up. It's already looking like compost. Another great ingredient, which is coffee grounds. Coffee grounds is a great source of nitrogen, and I'm actually going to do a video in the future and show you how to collect some coffee grounds. It's a great source over the winter, so I'm going to add some of that in. Okay. And what else do we have? Okay. I'll add some more. Oh, there we go. I'll add some more carbon in this case, in the form of leaves that I've done some shredding up. So I'm gonna mix that in there. Okay. Now, the nitrogen that I have in there is actually still moist, and so it's gonna help with that pile. But what you're definitely gonna need is, I have it around here somewhere, is some water. Now, I know in the winter, getting water out here could be a pain in the, getting water to your compost bin can kind of be of a pain because you're gonna be, depending where your pile is. If it's next to your house, well, it's easy to just fill up a watering can or a pitcher and add it. And go back and forth because it does need a fair amount of water. So let me do that. But if you have your pile compost bin and it's away from the house, away from your water source, then just try to get some pails or some buckets and fill this water. A cool little trick that hack that I came up with actually happened by chance. I was working on a pile, and when we were over at Camp Compost, and I didn't have any water. I'd run out of the rainwater, and there was really no way of getting water out there. But it was cold, and it was winter time. So what we did is, if there's snow on the ground, just grab some piles of snow and throw it in there. Your pile is going to get so hot it's going to melt. So it's a great source of water if you don't want to have to keep running back in front to your water source. Another great thing is that I came up with is that, and I have these storage bins. You've seen me use these drums to store my materials to keep them nice and dry. Well, and this was by chance as well. Now, as you see, the lid is actually indented. So it actually, whenever the rain would come, it would collect down. I always have to tip it over. But that's a nice thing that I found. Let me bring this over here. That when it had water in it, it actually, during the winter, it actually froze up. So I have this awesome ice cube here. And usually I just would break it off and just throw it to the ground. It'll eventually melt. But if you're in a pinch for some water for your compost pile, well, there's no reason you can't use blocks of ice. Now, you don't want it to be too thick because then it's not going to, it'll start freezing up your pile more. But if you bury it inside, in between the ingredients, that's going to melt down and it's going to keep your pile nice and moist, and you're not going to have to worry about going to and fro getting some water. So let me add a little more nitrogen here. excuse me. Let me add a little more nitrogen here. Move this over. Just bury the compost bin. Bury the ice in the compost bin. Make sure it's not towards the top or the snow. Okay. Another great source of nitrogen that's readily available for you to put in your compost bin over the winter are food scraps. And let me grab some. Food scraps are just a great thing for your compost pile. It makes so much better sense to add any of the leftover food scraps into your compost bin than putting in some kind of landfill. Now, when picking out your food scraps, I wouldn't recommend putting anything like meats or dairies in it, because those attract animals, and you don't want a bunch of rodents coming after your pile. And I'm sure your neighbors will love you if you did that. So it's important just to stick with the more organic materials. All the leftover cuttings from vegetables or even bread material is fine. And I've been collecting it for a little while now, and I have old heads of lettuce and bread and all kinds of material. And let me tell you, Jackie's gonna love this, because I've been storing it in our freezer for a while, and she's happy to get the space back. And I'll actually do a video in the future on processing and storing food scraps inside the house, ready for your compost bin. So what you want to do is just make sure, like these are some old bagels I think she got from work, so just make sure all the plastic is taken off of it. Let me put that to the side. You don't want to put any plastic in there. Just break it up and take a look and just kind of throw it all in there. It's important to put your compost, the food scraps, in the middle of the pile, just in case there are any some old bread containers. Just in case there are any rodents that do come after it, it'll make it harder for them to get it. So, kind of mix it in there. I have all kinds of stuff, banana peels and everything. If you're interested in seeing some of the good materials that you can use, here's another bagel with some of the good materials you can use for it. I'll leave a link to our fall video where I kind of broke everything down with what materials are, what kind of food scraps are good to put in there. So let's just add a little bit more carbon. Where's my scoop now? Oh, there it is. Okay. We're going to cover that up with some carbon. We'll probably add some more water. There we go. And that should break down nicely. When with time we come back in another week or so, none of that material will even be, you don't even know what was what. So let me finish building up this pile. I'm going to keep going in layers, carbon, nitrogen, water, and then I'll show you one last trick that's really going to help your compost pile over the winter. Okay, hopefully that'll keep all the critters out. Now remember, in order for a decomposition to happen, your compost pile is going to have to heat up. And I know a lot of people write to me and tell me that they're having problems getting their piles to heat up during the spring and summer, let alone during the winter. So it's important that your pile, if you're having problems heating it up, it's important that you get your pile larger. And a lot of people have these small piles and they're wondering why it's not heating up. Well, it actually is heating up, but just a very little amount in the center. The larger your pile is, the more dense it is, and the more everything's kind of locked in there, pressing down and generating all that heat. That's why it's important to go a little bigger. So when I was building these, instead of turning them on the sides and going a lower pile about 33 inches, I actually went 42 inches high. These are fully loaded, and all that weight and the water and the moisture, everything is breaking it down and heating it up that much quicker. But if you're still having problems, there is this last thing I'm going to show you that is going to be a game changer for your compost bins. Let me grab it. And that is using a tarp. Now, you've probably seen people doing this before. Any kind of plastic or tarp material is going to help trap in the heat. And if you use something like a black one or some kind of plastic, the black color is going to absorb the sun that much more, and it's really going to bake everything in there. I've been using this for a couple of years, and it's just great. And I'll come out here, and it can be as cold as it is today, and it's up into the 160s. So now you can use regular black plastic. That's fine. I got something more of a tarp because it's a little more heavy duty and it's easier to work with. Now you can use any kind of tarp. The basic blue one would work as well. But I find black just captures in the heat of the sun a lot better. Now it's not necessarily cheap. I think this one's a rather large one. It cost me around $45, but I've had it for years, and I actually only used it for this. So come the spring, I actually put it away and I save it for the winter. So you don't necessarily need one this large. This one's over 20 feet long. That's because I have 4 bins, so you can find one a lot cheaper. So you'll just want to cover it up as best as possible. Now, this one's actually even larger than I needed. Okay, oh, let me fix this one. There we go. I just kind of put all the excess in the back. So when it snows or rains, no ice will build up in the front. There you go. And just treat it like a Christmas present. Kind of wrap the sides. What I'll do later is I'll get some bungee cords and I'll bring around to keep the sides all. But there you go. And now the sun's coming out. It's just about noon. Sun's highest, and it's going to beat down on these. If I were to come back in about an hour, check the thermometer in here, it's going to be a good 20, 30 degrees higher. So if you're having problems with winter composting, give this a try. It's going to make the world of difference. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something. Keep an eye out for the rest of the series as we go by over the winter and turn the piles. And we're going to be looking to do this pile in about 6 to 8 weeks, depending on how the weather cooperates, that we can get out here. Hopefully we don't get massive snowstorms like we did last year and ruin everything. But let's hope for the best. So be sure to hit like and subscribe. And remember, till next time. Yes, we can.